When investing in a gas station business, should you buy a branded station or an unbranded? What are the advantages and disadvantages of owning a branded station versus an unbranded station? Let's dig deep and find out the truth right now.
Welcome to the one and only Gas Station Business 101 podcast, where you can learn all the secrets about how to start and operate a gas station business successfully and make money. This podcast is brought to you by the good folks at CSB Academy Publishing Company. And now, here is your host, Shabir Hossain.
Welcome to Gas Station Business 101 podcast. I am Shabir Hossain, and this is episode number 35. This is the show where we discuss how to start, run, and grow a gas station business successfully. And I give you the inside look at many real-life case studies so you can follow the steps and become successful in this business. Let's start by analyzing what is a branded gas station. Well, branded gas stations are what we see around us everywhere. These are the Chevrons, the Shells, the Marathons, the Bps, the Mobil stations, and all these are examples of branded gas stations. On the other hand, the unbranded stations are the ones that you see around you, like the ones Quick Stop, Express Mart, and whatever and whatnot, where you will see the name, but there will not be a logo sign attached anywhere on their station. The primary difference between a branded and unbranded station is the fuel additive that most brands use. These brands use millions of dollars in advertising their brand and about the fuel quality of their own brand. Due to the additive that they use, they all advertise that additive. And I'm sure some of you already have seen ads where Chevron has Techron and similar type of advertising where Shell says they have nitrogen-rich fuel. So these are the additive that they advertise, and they spend millions of dollars telling people that these are good things for your car. Now, the question you may ask, are these really good for your cars? Well, of course they are. They're not lying to you. They can't, because this is a science. Anybody can check and see what's in that additive and if it's good for your car or not. So they're not lying to you. But question is, do you need that additive for your car? That's the most important question. And I'll get to it in a minute. But as I said, these additives are mostly designed to improve fuel economy and clean your fuel system and reduce carbon emission. Naturally, you should ask, what about people buying unbranded fuel? What happens to them? Do they all suffer from lower fuel economy and dirty fuel system? Well, no, they're not. The government has a lot to say when it comes to quality of fuel. Just for an example, government always has this guideline that every manufacturer, every refineries, every fuel and oil companies have to maintain. There are standards that they have to maintain as far as the octane level goes in the fuel. There is certain octane level of the fuel that they have to maintain, certain sulfur content that they have to maintain, certain vapor pressure that they have to maintain, and there are certain quality lead content and ethanol content that they have to maintain. So essentially, if you're buying unbranded fuel, that's not making your car dirty or it's not making your car run poorly. But if you're adding some additive to that, if there are some dirt in your system, in your injector system, yes, they may get cleaned up. But also remember, it's like taking vitamins. If you don't take vitamins today, you don't feel anything bad tomorrow. Some people do not take vitamins at all. There are people that do, and there are people that swear by it, that if I don't take it, I don't feel good. Now, if you have gone to a doctor in the United States, you will notice that most of the doctors do not recommend or tell you upfront, well, start taking vitamins. They may tell you to take some E vitamins sometimes for some reasons, or some D vitamins, or some zinc for some reason, but they will not tell you to go take a multivitamin. Similarly, additives are good to have, but if you don't take it, if you don't use it, there's nothing wrong there. There are people that always use unbranded fuel. That doesn't mean their car don't last longer. So I know I got sidetracked with vitamins, and most of you that are listening to this podcast may disagree with me, but just wanted to make a point that if you do not take multivitamin, that doesn't mean your health is bad or you're having health issues. No, unless there are some other health issues that you already have, that's different. But for a healthy person, if you do not take multivitamin, that will not make you sick, or vice versa for that matter. My apology for moving off the track and bringing in all these vitamin things. Let's move on. So as I said, there are very specific standards and guidelines that all fuel must meet before it can legally be sold or distributed in most countries, including United States, Canada, Europe, and most other countries. There are strict guidelines that everybody has to follow. So in reality, the only difference, again, in quality between branded and unbranded fuel is that they add additive to the branded fuel and there is no additive in the unbranded ones. They also add a massive amount of marketing to that additive, trying to convince consumer that additives are worth that extra 5 to 15 cents per gallon that consumers pay to get that branded fuel. Chevron with Techron, Shell with nitrogen-enriched gasoline, ConocoPhillips 66 adds twice the amount of detergent or cleaning agent compared to any other additives. These are just few examples of additives when it comes to branded fuel. You may ask, why then we buy branded fuel when we can save money by buying unbranded? Well, again, you can do that, but most people with expensive new automobile tend to stay with branded fuel as they want that extra safety, the extra additive. It gives them a mental peace. Not to mention, typically, branded stations are cleaner, brighter, and they have certain standards that they all maintain in order to stay branded. Because with a brand, there comes responsibility. There are guidelines. If you don't follow those guidelines, they may give you a warning the first time, the second time, the third time, they will debrand you. So the standards have to be maintained very carefully. And there are those reasons that some people feel more comfortable going to a branded station. Just remember, the chemical standards set by the federal government for the US, as far gasoline goes, it's more than sufficient for your car. In fact, the car engines are designed to operate on gasoline refined to meet those basic standards. To be honest, purchasing more expensive branded gasoline is an unnecessary expense that is marketed as the must-have for higher-end vehicle. That is the argument some people make. Now, as for me, I think I disagree with that because, as I said, with brand, if you're not worried about the additive and not worried about that 3, 4, 5 cents price hike. But again, on that note, even though a lot of people argue that branded fuel is higher in prices than unbranded, often you will see there are stations that are unbranded selling the same price as branded, maybe a penny or two difference. But even without that additive, there are reasons then that I prefer branded station when I'm traveling on the interstate. Because as I said before, they're brighter, cleaner, the restrooms are clean, and there are uniformed employees. And most importantly, I know that this gasoline came from Shell, BP, Amoco, whoever. But when I'm traveling, let's say 500 miles away from home, I may not stop at an unbranded station. Just because that safety reason, I don't know where that fuel came from. So that makes me uncomfortable. That may be just me, but that makes me uncomfortable, and that's why I tend to stop at branded station when I'm away from home. Yes, in my own city, I know some of the stations, so yes, I may stop. But when I'm traveling, this is where I stop. Now, let's identify some of the top brands in the US. And again, if you're listening outside the US, there might be some brands that I'm not mentioning here. But as I said, since I'm in US, I will only talk about the brands that I see that are dominant in the US. First would be Shell, also known as Royal Dutch Petroleum Corporation. Shell is based out of Netherlands, as you can imagine. That's why they say Royal Dutch Petroleum. It is the 7th largest company in the world, not in fuel only, largest company. You're talking about all the companies combined. And this is also the 2nd largest oil company in the world. They have a very strong presence in the US. And not to mention a very strong credit card base. The reason I'm mentioning all these brands, so you know how strong these companies are and what their credit card base are. Next is Chevron Texaco. They merged a while back. And Chevron is an American company. It has an active business in more than 180 countries in the world. That should tell you something. It too has a very strong presence throughout the US. It's not regional, like, it's better in the Southeast than Northwest. It has a very strong presence throughout the country. Next would be Exxon Mobil. Exxon Mobil is by far the largest oil company in the world, especially after the merger of Exxon and Mobil in the late 90s. And they truly, after that, became the largest of all the oil companies. So this is number one, folks. Naturally, they are the strongest brand, and with that comes the strongest credit card base as well. See, as a business owner in gas station business, our goal is to go with a company that has very strong credit card base, because that way we can increase our business. So we need to worry about what is this credit card base in our city, our region for that brand, and not how big the brand is worldwide. But I'm just mentioning so you would know how big these brands really are. Next comes ConocoPhillips. Conoco merged with Phillips in the early 2000s. Lately, they're establishing a brand called Phillips 66. But when it comes to the strong brand recognition and a strong credit card base, I believe they fall short compared to the other brands like Exxon, Chevron, Texaco, and all of that. Next, let's talk about Valero. And I'm sure some of you are seeing a lot more Valeros lately than you ever seen before. Valero used to be more in Texas than anywhere else, or I should say in those regions, Texas, Arizona, and those areas. But lately, they're expanding rapidly. And Valero is a Fortune 500 company, so they are not a small company. Valero has the largest retail operation in the US with almost 7,000 retail and wholesale outlets. As I said, they're expanding very rapidly. So I'm sure wherever you are, you may be seeing a Valero next to you somewhere, because they have 7,000 outlets throughout the country. Next comes Marathon. Well, some of you may even not know the name Marathon in some parts of the country, but Marathon also owns Speedway. And I'm sure once I say Speedway, most of you have seen those big unbranded fast fueling places that has 20, 30 MPDs where 40 cars can pump at one time. And this is what they own. Marathon owns Speedway. And they're also United States' second largest chain of company-owned and operated gas stations. There are thousands of speedways around the country. So yes, they are the second largest chain company-owned stores in the US. Next, let's talk about British Petroleum, or BP. They're based out of London, England. The name gives it out, I'm sure. It is also the 6th largest oil company of the world. BP has a very strong and large presence in the gas station and retail sector. They have over 7,000 gas stations in the US only, and over 17,000 stations worldwide. So they too have a very strong credit card base in the US. And just so I should mention, my very first business was a BP gas station, and later on I became a company dealer for British Petroleum. I went to their headquarters, which is the US headquarters in Cleveland, and I was trained by them. Then I became a certified, authorized dealer from British Petroleum. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about the advantages of having branded station. And then we'll talk about the disadvantages, of course. But let's talk about the advantages first. And in my opinion, there are 4 big advantages to having a branded station. And I'm sure some of you can add few more to this list, but these are the 4 main big ones. The first one is, of course, the image. Image in reality for business is a very big thing. It's the outlook, the first impression is the most important impression. So if you have a very nice, shiny, bright branded station, it could be a Shell, BP, Exxon, Amoco, doesn't matter. But they all look great when they are clean, when they're well lit, and with those branded logos. Image, as I was saying earlier, that carries a lot of people inside a store. The image that brings people to drive into that parking lot. And if you're traveling in a city that you have never been in and you're in need of fuel, if you're driving on a road, there are a couple of unbranded stations. They look decent. And then you see this BP or Shell or Texaco that looks bright, nice, clean. Chances are you may pull into one of those for a lot of reasons, because at least you can relate to their brand, because most likely wherever you live, you have, let's say it's a Shell station. You have a Shell station next to your house. And if you see a Shell, you think, I know the brand. So I should pull in here because at least I have some similarities or some comfort knowing that I know this brand. See, this is the safety thing that from back of our mind, from unconscious mind, that pushes us to do this. And there is nothing wrong with that. As I said, when I travel, I tend to stop only in branded gas stations because the unbranded ones, I'm not sure where they're getting their fuel from. Even though I'm in this business, I just told you that there are strong guidelines from federal government. I still do not feel secure in an unknown city or location to get into an unbranded station unless it is one of those very nice, clean, big unbranded station that a lot of people are in there, a lot of cars are pumping fuel, then yes, I will. So it's all about image. Again, we're coming back to that image thing. And when it comes to a branded station, they may not be the biggest station, they may not be the newest one, but it gives you a comfort knowing that this brand is somebody you have dealt with them before. You have been to a Shell before, or you have been to a Chevron before, so you think you know them. And that's the advantage of having that image. Next advantage would be the support. Well, if you're a branded station, for example, a Shell has a group of people that provide support to their branded retailers. It could be your credit card's not working, your satellite's not working, or whatever it may be. Your consumer have some complaints, whatever it is, Shell, Chevron, BP, you name it. All these branded stations, they provide support to their dealers, to their stores. If you have any problem, they solve it. If somebody complains that they received bad fuel from your station, which happens often, and it's not always the case. Some people already have a car issue and they try to blame it on the gas station. And it happens, as I said, very often. So let's say if you're a branded station, when they come to your station and say, I got bad fuel from your station, all you do is notify your jobber or your brand manager. Let's say if you're a Shell, you have a brand manager. You notify them. They have a support team that handles that claim or that complaint for you. But if you're an unbranded one, you most likely will have to handle that all by yourself. You can talk to your supplier, but they will say, well, we supplied you with the fuel and it was a good quality fuel. So I think unless you have some problem in your own tanks, you need to resolve it. But when it comes to a branded station, they will stand behind you and handle this problem. I think it's time for a little story. It's a true story. Back in 97, I was a dealer for British Petroleum, a BP station. And in one fine morning, I received a truckload of fuel. But that fuel had, out of 8,500 gallons, it had about 5,000 gallons of water. Now, you may wonder or ask, how did water get into a fuel supply system or the tanks that this truck brought the fuel from? It was an error that usually never happens, maybe 1 in a million times, but somehow it did happen at a terminal where the truck, when it was getting the fuel loaded onto the truck, somehow it got about 5,000 gallons worth of water. None of us knew that. The truck came, delivered the fuel about 6 a.m., and right around 6:30, I was getting all these people that were taking their kids to school. And I remember I had 6 MPDs, so 12 cars can pump at one time. And right around 6:45, all 12 cars, all 12 fueling points were full with cars. And in about 10 minutes, right after they fueled, they start up their car. Some of them died right at the pump. Some of them went about 50 feet from the station and died. The car, that is. So you can imagine the chaos. People are on their way to school, and all of a sudden I have 12 dead cars in and around my parking lot. I wasn't at the store. The manager called me. I rushed over there. And it was a scene that I don't want to see ever again. It was literally a disaster. Angry parents that their kids were getting late going to the school. So first thing I did is I called in two of my employees that lived nearby and offered everybody a ride to the school first. And then I assured them whatever needed to be done, whatever damages has happened, we will take care of it 110%. In the meantime, I called the BP's manager, the local area manager, and he instructed me to handle it whichever way I can to keep them calm. And he will do whatever he can. He got involved and he called in his home office and their managers got involved. And they told me just to make sure the people do not suffer any more than what they have and do whatever we can. And they will reimburse it. If I didn't have the money, they will wire me the money to handle the issue. So what I did is I told every one of those people that they will have a rental car in about an hour. I called Enterprise Rental Car, told them I needed 12 cars and for them to send somebody to pick these people up so they can take them to the rental car place so they can pick up their cars. The problem we ran into is 2 of those drivers didn't have insurance. Back then, there was no mandatory insurance in Alabama. And the second thing was, I think one of them had an issue in their driver's license. So what we had to do is we had to guarantee those 2 rentals with our credit cards. But we still went ahead and did that. I did that myself. I said, these 12 people should have cars within the hour. And they should all be on their way, wherever they're going, work, whatever. And I told each and every one of those people, I offered them coffee, drinks, and I told them that I'm getting them a new rental car, not an old, raggedy anything, just brand new rental car. And I will send each car to their dealers. Let's say if it was a Chevy, it's going to a Chevy dealer. If it's a Toyota, it's going to a Toyota dealer. So there is no more hiccups. There is no more guesswork. Some of them told me, no, they wanted to take it to one of their friend who's a mechanic. I told them we cannot do that. It has to go to a dealer. And that is the decision I made on my own because I figured this way the work will be guaranteed regardless how much it cost. Anyway, so they got their rental cars within the hour and I offered them 2 free tank of gas, not from our station, but I told them wherever they get gas from, they can buy 2 tanks of gas in that rental car for however many days they will be driving those cars. And if they bring me the receipt, I'll reimburse them. So that's just a way of saying we're sorry for the inconvenience. Anyway, long story short, in about week and a half, all their cars got fixed. And the total bill came to about $24,000. BP took care of it 100%. They even contacted each and every one of these individuals send them gift cards, they send them letters, they send them apology letters. They invited them to some type of thing where they offered them free dinner. So anyway, my point being, see, just because it happened at a branded gas station, and so they don't lose faith in British Petroleum, they have gone above and beyond to make sure that they do not have a bad taste in their mouth in the long run. So best thing is, month later, I started seeing all those people came back to the store. And they all knew that it doesn't happen every day. It may be 1 in a million times that happened by an accident. But since we stood by them, we took care of them and made them happy, they were faithful customers for a long, long time. So again, you see the support that you get from a branded station is unparalleled to anything else you can get out there. Number 3 would be the credit card base, which I keep on talking about. In last many episodes, I think every time we talked about brand versus non-brand, I spoke about credit card base. And again, this is one of the biggest importance when it comes to our own business. If I'm to choose a brand, let's say I have an unbranded station and I'm about to brand that station. What is it there that I can do? First thing is, let me just fill you in on this little secret. If you buy an unbranded station, and let's say the unbranded station doesn't even have an existing fuel contract, because if this unbranded station has an existing fuel contract with an unbranded supplier, you cannot go and brand that station. Any station you brand has to be out of any and all types of contract for a branded company to come and sign you up with a new contract. They don't want to get into a litigation or a lawsuit of any kind. So they want to make sure you're not under contract with any other fuel suppliers. But recently, in a couple of years ago, I tried to brand a station and I was unable to do so. This is the reason. This store that I tried to brand only has 2 MPDs or 2 multi-product dispenser, meaning only 4 cars can pump at once. Nowadays, most branded station requires at least 3 or higher MPD count, meaning at least 6 cars should be able to pump at once or more. And this one has only 2. And the other requirements they have is most branded station will not brand any station that's doing less than 45 or 50,000 gallons, depending on what brand you are going to. They will tell you that if the station is not pumping more than 45 or 50,000 gallons a month, it's not worth for them to brand that station, because there is a lot of cost involved in branding a station. And if you're only pumping very little volume, they will not do so. So in this event, in the station that I tried to brand, I was unsuccessful because it was doing only 25,000 gallons with 2 MPDs. So I did not qualify in 2 different aspects that I needed to qualify. Anyway, so if you are looking to buy a station, I wanted to throw that out there so you would know that if you have that volume and 3 or more MPDs, you can go and brand your station with whoever you want, as long as you get a good deal from any of these local jobbers that are carrying your brand, that brand that you want to carry at your store. But always remember, like I always said, when picking a brand, you need to find out who's the strongest brand in your city or your county, your state, your locality, your municipality. Find out at least 2 of those brands that are very dominant. Then figure out which of these 2 brands is not very close to you. This way you know which brand you need to bring. So let's say you have Shell and BP that are 2 strongest and dominant brand in your city. There is a Shell only a mile away from you, but there is no BP in 2-mile radius. You should brand your station BP because that's nowhere near your station. So you will have a BP, but if you brand that Shell, then there are 2 Shells within a mile of each other. So you're not helping the other person. He's not helping you. You're feeding off of him. So you're literally dividing the business. But if you get a BP on the other hand, because there is no BP in 2-mile radius, that means you're getting new customers. So these are the basic research you have to do. But first you need to find out which brands are dominant in your city. Very important. Moving on, the 4th and final one is marketing. Every branded station goes through quite a bit of marketing every year, unlike any unbranded station. And I have both, so I can compare. Let's say a Shell station, a BP station, or Chevron. All of these names, I'm just mentioning three, doesn't mean that it's only limited to three, but all branded station, every quarter they receive few big packages. And in those packages, there are POP, stands for point of purchase material. These are promotional material that goes around the nozzle, goes around the pump toppers, goes around the trash bin. Everywhere you see different colors and different messages. Sometimes they say get 10 cents off a gallon. Sometimes it says nitrogen rich premium fuel or regular fuel. Try this, try that. I remember one of the Shell station recently was not one. All of the Shell stations were promoting some type of premium fuel with BMW giveaway, or there are some local Shells that are promoting some grocery companies alliance where they get some cents off every time they shop at those grocery stores. So there are lots of marketing campaigns going on nationwide. There are some more localized, there are some more regional, and there are some more national. But there are always something going on, some kind of giveaway, some kind of promotional messages, some type of branding messages, I should say, that this is why this fuel is better than others. And this is what we're doing right now. We're promoting your station by doing this or by doing that. So there are lots of marketing efforts. And that marketing effort is not only limited to those POP material. They're sending the dealers different types of uniforms and a lot of different varieties of seminars that are going on that some of these dealers have to attend every so often so they can be trained on the new material and new marketing tactics. There are times they do some loyalty programs. So as you can imagine, that there are things that are always taking place at these branded companies. They have a huge team of marketers that their job is only to market their fuel. And if you are a branded station, then you're part of that group because you are the final frontliner, meaning you are the one who's facing the customer. So all these people that are getting paid to teach you marketing, they really try to do a good job because they know the result finally comes from what you do with those customers, how you portray your station, how you sell your product, how you market, and how you tell people about the product that you're selling. So they, I think, mostly do a very good job at it. And it helps because it helps promote the station, the business, and ultimately your bottom line. Now let's talk about the disadvantages of having a branded business. Firstly, it would be the price difference. As I said before, that there is typically anywhere from 2 to 15 cents difference between a branded and unbranded. Years ago, it used to be much higher of a difference, but lately I have seen the differences are very nominal. For example, from anywhere from 2 to 5 cents. In my cities, the areas that I see, the differences are very little, and you can pretty much ignore the difference because it is so little. But still, there are places, there are parts of the countries where the difference is still higher, and that can put you at a disadvantage if you are a branded station owner and right across from you there is an unbranded station that's selling fuel below your cost, meaning they're posting a price which is 10 cents below your cost and you're selling it at 10 cents higher because you want to still make 4, 5, 6, 7 cents on a gallon. So that's when you get to be in a very big disadvantage point. But if you ask me in wholesale level, there is usually not a 10 cents difference between a branded and an unbranded fuel prices. As I said, I deal with both every day. Typically, what I see is a difference of 2 pennies standard. there are times, let's say, if Shell prices have gone up today, chances are in few hours, Chevron, Exxon, Mobil, everybody else will follow suit, because fuel price doesn't go up just for Chevron. It goes up for everybody. It depends on what part of the day they go up on their prices. So there are times when I've seen, let's say, I ordered fuel for both branded and unbranded, and Shell went up that day in the morning. So when they loaded up my load of fuel, the prices were 5 cents higher than my unbranded prices. And I have seen the reverse, when unbranded prices went up faster than branded prices, and I ended up paying 3, 4, 5, 6 pennies higher for unbranded than branded. So it goes both ways, but typically, generally speaking, the difference should be about 2 pennies. Now, second, a disadvantage, I think, is the image cost of creating that image for your branded station. Now, as I said, if you're branding a station today and if you have high volume, the brand company, let's say Shell, Chevron, whoever it is, will come pay for that brand as long as you sign a contract with them. But there are times that you don't have that volume, you still are going through that image cost. It can be quite expensive. And there are times they ask you that you need to improve some parts of your image. And let's say if you're within that 10-year contract where they already paid you to upgrade your image, they will not pay you twice. Instead, there are some upgrades that you have to do on your own, and that can cost money. So that is, to me, a disadvantage. Now, third would be the upgrade cost. For example, recently, as you recall, in one of the episodes, I don't remember the number of it, but it's the EMV upgrade, the Europay Visa MasterCard upgrade. Most branded stations have a deadline that they have to upgrade that by, I believe it was December of last year, where you have to upgrade your POS system. And those POS systems are point of sale systems, cash register system. They cost quite a bit of money, usually about anywhere from $12,000 to $18,000. So if you are an unbranded station, you may not have to do that for now. But for a branded station, they require you to do that. And that is a cost. They share it with you, but not 100%. They typically share about 40 to 50% of that cost. Rest of it comes out of your pocket. So these are the disadvantages, in my opinion. But if you weigh these two side by side, the advantages and disadvantages, most likely you will see the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. The last one under this disadvantage category is quarterly inspection. Now, I say this is a debatable one because it can be counted as an advantage. Some people look at it as a disadvantage. So I will tell you what it is, and you decide if you want to add this to the advantage category or disadvantage category. Most branded stations have a program where they send in mystery shoppers that looks at your store, your employees, their name tag, if they have the uniform on, if they have the proper shoes, proper dress code, proper greetings, if they made eye contacts, if your store is looking clean, if your parking lot is clean, if your nozzles are clean, if your pumps are working properly, if your restrooms are clean and well lit or not. They go through a checklist, a laundry list of things, and they check off whatever is not met as far as their guidelines. So the bad part of quarterly inspection is if you fail 2 of them in a row, they can rebrand you. But if you make 90% or above, then you're doing really well. And if you make 95% or above, some of the brands give the dealer $300 or $400 incentive. They even give the cashier a $100 Visa check card or something, a gift card of that sort or something. But it's not the point of $100 or $300. It's the fear of being debranded. But I believe this is an advantage and not a disadvantage. But I added it under the disadvantages category because if you are not careful, it can harm you. And that is a disadvantage. But if you have employees that are running your store, this inspection can keep them on their toes. You can tell them, hey, if you fail in inspection, I tell my managers, if you fail in inspection 2 times in a row, then your job will be eliminated. You will be gone. But if you fail once, you will be on probation, because I want to know why you failed. What's going on in the store? That means you're not doing your job right. So make sure you don't fail ever. And that is the advantage of having a third eye looking at your business, making sure things are running properly. Your employees are behaving properly. So to me, this is an advantage. I love this because every time I get the report, I sit down with that report and I read through it and see wherever the points are taken off. I usually go and have a meeting and discuss it with everybody, seeing why there was no eye contact made, why you did not say hi to this person, and whatever the reason that they have taken a point off or something. If it is a fault of the employees that they could have prevented, then yes, it is a talking point memo for me. But one time recently, there was 3 points taken off because there was a small pothole right at the drive entry part of the parking lot, which happened recently due to a heavy rain. And that was beyond the cashier's control. So we fixed that error and I reapplied for them to come back and reinspect, which you can always do. Let's say you failed an inspection, which I have failed in 1 or 2 stores time to time. What I usually do is I rectify the situation and I pay a $100 fee to have my station re-inspected. And I usually pass with a flying color because I exactly know what needs to be fixed by then. And you can do the same. This way, it's not counted as you failed. It's counted as you passed. So to me, this is an advantage. Now, you decide if you want to count it as an advantage or disadvantage. Lastly, let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of having a non-brand gas station. Well, there are only 2 things we'll talk about. One is, just as we spoke, cheaper price versus higher price. Unbranded is typically about 2 cents cheaper than branded. So as you can see, you always have a price advantage over your competitors when you're running a unbranded fuel station. Second is the freedom to do whatever versus following branded companies' guidelines. Like I said, the branded company always will tell you there are things you can sell, there are things you can do, there are things you cannot do, and there are uniforms you have to wear, there are ways you have to greet people. All of these are good for business. But if you are the owner of a business, you are behind the counter, you don't want to wear your uniform, and you are an unbranded store, that is fine. That is your freedom to do so. But in a branded store, you cannot do that. So if you, let's say, a out of the blue example, a oddball example would be a gas station I've gone to recently had a swing right in front of the front door, hanging on the side of a canopy. And one of the owner was sitting in there smoking a cigarette. Now, if he was a branded station, he sure will not be able to do that. But it's a branded station in a countryside, so he was having a ball. And his friends were hanging around and they were talking, and it was all fine. But as I said, it's the freedom that he's enjoying in his non-brand or unbranded gas station. If he was a branded station, as I said, there was no way he could do that. So the bottom line is, if you're in the market for a gas station, don't try to find a specific brand. Instead, try to find a good and profitable business first, as your focus should be on the profitability of the business and not on what brand this business is carrying. If your heart is set on brands, then look and see what are the 2 strongest brands, as I said earlier. Follow what I said about finding a couple of strongest brands in your area and go with the one that do not have a presence very close by. This way, you will enjoy the strong credit card base and your brand fever. Because if you want a brand, go with one and you will enjoy the benefits of it. Hope I was able to clarify some of the questions some of you have asked before about branded station and unbranded station. After listening to this episode, if you have any question, please feel free to email me at shabir@nbsp.com. gasstationbusiness101.com, or you can join my Facebook group and send me questions there, and you will get a very quick reply there as well. If you enjoy my podcast, I have a humble request to you. If you go on to iTunes, wherever you download this from, or Stitcher Radio or TuneIn Radio, if you could put up a review for me, an honest review. If you don't like it, say it. If you'd like it, I would love to hear that. So however way you feel, if you would go on and put up a review, that would mean the world to me. And lastly, don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. As I always say, I am about to send some more valuable content. I did some earlier, a few weeks ago. Some of you received some books, or one book I should say, and I'm about to send some more valuable content through my newsletter. So if you haven't signed up, please go onto my blog, www.gasstationbusiness101.com/subscribe. I will add a link to my show note, so you can just click and it will take you to the subscription page. Once again, thank you for spending your valuable time with me and listening to this podcast. Take care, and I will see you soon.
This has been the one and only Gas Station Business 101 podcast with your host, Shabir Hossain. This podcast was brought to you by CSB Academy Publishing Company. Be sure to join us next time as we share with you the secrets about how to start and operate a gas station business successfully and make money.